As I mentioned in my review for Dracula X Nocturne in the Moonlight, the SEGA Saturn was a 2D graphics powerhouse. Besides Sega, two third-party developers really knew how to tap into it, Capcom and SNK. Hand-drawn 2D sprites were still kicking ass in the arcades with Capcom's uber-popular Street Fighter series and King of Fighters from SNK. What am I talking about? SNK had tons of awesome games like Samurai Showdown and Metal Slug. That's one of my favorites. I hated the fact that I died after one hit, but it's just so much fun and violent as prison sex in a Saturday morning cartoon sort of way. So awesome. Good God, you really need to watch your ass with this one. Thankfully, the controls are flawless, so you can hone your skills without constraints. Looking back on the whole experience, isn't it strange how you go up against old-fashioned fighter planes and tanks reminiscent of World War II, yet there's high-energy laser cannons? Kind of reminds me of Batman the Animated Series with its fedoras, black and white TVs, and artificially intelligent supercomputers. What was I talking about? Anyway, as mighty as Sega's 32-bit console was, sometimes you just need more power. Sega then developed the RAM expansion cartridge. A peripheral for a Sega console? Get out of town. Yes, I know, this works much like the 4 MB expansion pack for Nintendo 64, except Sega did it first. If that's the case, how come I never heard of it? Because it was only released in Japan. That's why. There was talk of releasing the RAM carts in Europe and North America, though due to Saturn's rapid decline in popularity and sales, RAM cartridges never left foreign soil. Because of this sad fact, we missed out on some truly spectacular arcade ports. Before we get into that, let me explain the cartridges. Believe it or not, there were several different versions, the 1 MB from SNK and 4 MB from Capcom. Some games made this optional while many wouldn't work without it, such as X-Men vs. Street Fighter.
X-Men vs. Street Fighter! Ready, fight!
This game is awesome. Prior to its existence, I hadn't played a fighting game where I could choose two separate fighters and tag out on the fly. It's a great feature that was absent from the PlayStation port, which was the first version I bought and played. That was an innovation that set X-Men vs. Street Fighter apart from many fighters of that time, so why bother even porting it when said feature's not even present? With the Saturn, this fucker's almost arcade perfect. It uses the additional RAM in the cartridge to store more information while making load times practically non-existent. Just watch this. Here's our impressive roster, I choose my characters, speed, etc. The computer makes a selection.
Come on, Mona.
Come on, tell me you're not hard. And I'm in the game. That's faster than a virgin with a warm banana peel. Look at just how fast this game moves, and it never, ever decelerates. Not even when you use any one of the combo attacks. Jesus Christ, glad I'm not prone to epileptic seizures. The visuals are just as dazzling here as they were in the arcade. Colors, detail, animation, it's just insane how faithful this presentation is to the arcade original. Audio is phenomenal. Seriously, just hook this fucker up to a surround system and piss off your neighbors for a week. Believe me, it's totally worth an angry phone call or two. The game's successor, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, will have you flinging geekgasm before you can scream whatever the hell that is. Like X-Men vs. Street Fighter, the visual and audio presentation, as well as the controls, are extremely faithful to the original. Now, whether or not these games are arcade perfect is questionable. Some sources claim these ports are 100% arcade perfect, while others insist some frames and sprites were sacrificed in order to maintain performance. Honestly, I don't know, nor do I really give a shit. The tag team feature is intact, looks great, sounds awesome, and it plays like the arcade game. That's all I really care about. As I mentioned earlier, SNK had their own cart. It seems they were content with using only 1 megabyte of additional memory. I have no idea why. Perhaps they didn't want to run the risk of competing with themselves and their Neo Geo consoles. Then again, why even release their games on competing consoles to begin with? Whatever. Many of their games use the 1 megabyte cart, like Real Bout, Fatal Fury Special, Metal Slug, and Samurai Showdown 4. They look and sound incredible. The gameplay is just as insane as it was in arcades. There are very few instances of lag, which is impressive. Controls dead on balls accurate. The only issue I have with these ports are the load times. Admittedly, this isn't a major issue. They're no longer than those found on Street Fighter 02, except that game didn't have a RAM card to fall back on. I guess that added memory went towards frames and sprites rather than speed. Like I said, this isn't a huge gripe, but once you know what's possible and have played some X-Men vs. Street Fighter with 4 megabytes of added oomph, it will leave you kind of scratching your head. One other cart I want to show you is the King of Fighters 95 1 megabyte ROM cart. Not RAM, ROM. It actually contains game data not found on the disc, so this game's part cartridge, part CD. Gnarly. Yeah, there's load times, but they're mercifully short. Wow, this game is pretty. The animation is like water with beautifully hand-drawn characters. These environments have an incredible amount of detail and tons of atmosphere, all the grit and grime of an old-school kung fu movie. I kinda suck at these games because I've grown so accustomed to fighters like Street Fighter and Virtua Fighter. Still, I love playing them. The only thing I don't like about this particular version is that whenever I want to play it, I have to swap my 4-in-1 cart, a cartridge that's compatible with both Capcom as well as SNK RAM titles, with its ROM cart. Has nothing to do with laziness, it's just that the Saturn's cartridge slot is somewhat accident prone, so I'm not exactly comfortable with having to switch cartridges out so frequently. All in all, I think the RAM cartridge is an awesome accessory, and it's a damn shame it never saw a release outside of Japan. No, I don't think it would have saved the Saturn from an untimely death, though I'd like to think it would have gone out with a bit more respect than what it received here in the States. But that's what I get for thinking.
ごめんなさい。もう行きます。